Hey guys, we're live. It's Ted Bogert with the TED Show. You guys know the weight of my heart is food and some sort of adult libation. And today I have Ryan Manning with MX Taco on the show. What's up, my friend? How are you doing?
Great, great. Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to have you. Ryan brought food, which I will try live as we're talking. And then, of course, this looks good. Cerveza Local. I
Yeah,
probably didn't get the local part right, but I love it. It's a lager. So I'm
definitely.
going to open that and imbibe a little bit as we're talking. So tell them a little bit about you. Obviously, people are not here. They know all about me. They want to know about you and they want to know about food. So
Definitely.
give them a little background on you.
Definitely. My name's Ryan. I'm the owner of MX Taco Restaurants or MX Taco Restaurants. We've got a location in the Bumby Avenue area of the Milk District. We're a fast casual restaurant serving traditional Mexican cuisine. I always had a passion for Mexican food. I thought I knew about Mexican food until I moved to Mexico and realized I didn't know anything about Mexican food. Um, so uh, So I was a chef for Ritz-Carlton here in Orlando, Disney before that, and then did my culinary training up in Colonial Williamsburg up in Virginia, and then cooked at the U.S. House of Representatives, and then eventually worked my way with the Ritz-Carlton, kind of all over the country doing different programs, short stints, long stints with different hotels, but then I ended up in the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun, and that was
Wow. That
definitely a
sounds horrible.
it's definitely no. you're, it's interesting to take a 50% pay cut and then watch the economic situation of a country evolve to realize that wow, I took a 75% pay cut because of the difference between the peso and the dollar while I was living there. But at the same time, I got a promotion, and so you get that initial fear factor of do I move to another country that I kind of know a little bit about, but I really don't know anything about, and then you get there and you realize everything's a different economy, it's a different way of living, and now I missed my maid, I missed my laundry that was folded for me, and the worst part about doing laundry in Mexico was having to put it into your drawer after it was already folded and done, and half the time I didn't even do that. So even when you get it done that far, you really don't even follow through on that little last step for anybody that's wondering about how painful laundry is, no matter what. But
Was it hard doing? Because I would imagine that at Ritz, there's an expectation, obviously, a level of food service. But were you surprised by anything when you went there, as far as what the expectations were from one hotel to the next?
so with every Ritz Carlton, they're actually all individually owned. So it's all part of it's almost a reverse franchise because you have these owners of individual hotels, but the hotels are actually run by the Ritz-Carlton company. And so just adapting to those different nuances of one ownership expectation versus another. The Ritz-Carlton in Cancun is a five-star, five-diamond hotel. Beautiful beaches and everything, but it's a little bit older hotel in the collection of Ritz-Carlton. So that was kind of interesting to just kind of adapt to that factor. And then I think, I'm adapting to Mexican business expectations versus American. In the United States, we're go, go, go 24/7. And in Mexico, I'd start one project and have to put it on hold and then start another project. And really quickly realized I needed to run about 9 projects consecutively, but not tell everybody I was running 9 projects consecutively because you never knew which one was going to stop or start. You kind of work your way through once you hit these roadblocks. So it's interesting just adapting to the cultural changes of that. And then one of my most fascinating points of working and living there was that I was approached one day by the assistant director of finance, and he's in the hotel. We had an English teacher, but this English teacher would teach like an English teacher would teach in the United States, like conjugate the verb, et cetera, et cetera. And he comes to me and he says, "We'd like you to host a class as one of the few Americans working here, native English speakers, teaching us English slang because there's things that people are asking us that I don't really understand and a lot of the other employees don't understand. So if we can do like a weekly meetup and we'll just bring questions to you and you can explain them to us." And so I'm teaching this class and I'm learning about the English language as I'm teaching this class. Like they're asking me things like, why is it you get on the plane but you don't get in the plane, but you get in the taxi but you get on the bus? And I'm like, well, I guess you have to climb up into one or something. I'm not sure exactly.
None of the English language makes sense.
Yeah, but the funniest part was cultural differences. So in Mexico, you can call your girlfriend gordita, little fatty, and that's totally acceptable. That's a term of endearment. But if you called your girlfriend little fatty in English, that wouldn't go over well. So just kind of and I explained that to them. The funniest part was watching everybody grab their pens and paper and start writing it down.
Write it down.
So I can only imagine. Don't call your girlfriend little fatty and notes.
Yeah, please don't. Not here anyway. Hey, Eddie Nichols sends out some love. He says, we love MX Taco, and Ryan ain't bad with a smiley face. Eddie's awesome. So how does a guy, like, I know you're in Cancun, you're working there, you're immersed in the culture, or Ritz-Carlton culture of Cancun. And, but you're an Irish named guy, at least I think Ryan at least is Irish. So how does somebody with that background and your training decide to open a restaurant that's focused on Mexican food?
Mainly because as I looked at Mexican cuisine in the United States, as I mentioned, I thought I knew what it was before moving there. I mean, I always knew, to be honest, I always hated Mexican food growing up. But what I realized is I didn't enjoy Tex-Mex. And so whenever my family would want to go to some of these places that probably don't even exist anymore, like Chi-Chi's or Don Pablo's and things like that, I was not a fan. I'm like, can we just go to Red Robin or something else? And so once I experienced like real Mexican food through a lot of friends that lived here in Orlando, like first time I had carnitas or any of those, traditional carne asada kind of dishes, it kind of was mind blowing in a way. So then when I moved to Mexico and I realized, wow, like we don't really have good tortillas here in the United States. Whereas in Mexico, you can go to a 7-Eleven and buy them out of a cooler where they're hot right by the cash register, and they taste 10,000 times better.
Amazing.
Than you'll find here in the United States. So those were like little things that just started adding up. And so my mission when I started working on the restaurant concept was, how do I bring these authentic traditional flavors to Orlando through our menu? So one day I'm getting ready for work and this map idea hits me in the face, and I realized, our menu, we've got a lot of tacos that people are super passionate about. I think it falls, I wouldn't say evenly down the menu on which ones are the most popular, but definitely I initially had planned to rotate some in and out, but now it's kind of hard to do that. But
what do I have here I can eat as your
definitely. So
this looks delicious.
One of my specials is that first one. So that's a gringa. So a gringa is a flour tortilla with the tacos al pastor meat that we have on the vertical rotisserie. So we shave that off, and then it goes inside with the Oaxaca cheese, which is like a Mexican mozzarella cheese. So it's a good flavor profile. You've got what's called salsa verde crudo, and it's like a raw salsa verde. So we don't actually cook the tomatillos or the onion or the garlic. So it's a really fresh salsa on the side. There is serrano, so a little bit of heat to that. So we're doing that actually as a special today in the restaurant. So
that is phenomenal.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's
what's
really
it called again? I'm sorry, Ryan. What's it called?
So it's called a gringa. So a gringa is, like an American girl. And I was asking a friend, why do you guys call it a gringa? And he said, well, this dish is sexy, and so are American girls. So that's what one of my Mexican friends said. Obviously,
this is delicious.
Kind of fun. So
you also, and the guacamole is phenomenal.
Thank you.
You make everything in house, obviously, yeah.
Yes, we do. Yeah, and we're just a small little kitchen, overall. So it's but it's definitely a fun environment. My sous chef came with me from Ritz-Carlton in Mexico, and so he brings a lot of his own passion. He's from right outside of Mexico City. So him and I have been working on this project for about 4 years now. We opened January of last year, kind of soft opening, and then grand opened in March. And but it was little projects along the way. We were cooking at the Mexican Embassy in Washington, D.C. So we did actually 2 years ago we did their Cinco de Mayo party, which is actually an event called Passport to DC. So it just overlaps Cinco de Mayo with, if you can imagine, Epcot, but Epcot is every single embassy in Washington, DC opens their house and either sells or gives away food, alcohol.
Wow.
Country. There's buses that take you around. It's actually the coolest time to ever visit Washington, DC.
I've never heard of that. It is. It's like an Epcot in DC.
Yeah, and you're actually setting foot on foreign soil every time you enter one of these embassies. So they do a European weekend, and then they do a Embassies of the World weekend. So Mexico's included in the Embassies of the World. So we actually got to host the event at their original embassy, which was actually the home of the man that built the White House, so the architect of the White House. So it's really fascinating.
Cool.
They took the architecture of the White House of his designs, kept it, but then they incorporated murals from famous painters in Mexico that they brought in to paint these murals up and down the corridors. And now it's a museum since they've moved the embassy to a larger property closer to the White House itself.
I want to throw out Peter Von Taborski. What's up, Peter? Says his food is great and he's a good dude too. Tell him I said hi. Got a lot of love on there. All right, while you continue to talk, I have a second. It looks like a taco of some kind. Shrimp, perhaps.
So that tacos are shrimp tican chic. So tican chic is actually a Mayan word. So in the Yucatan region of Mexico, which encompasses from the state of Yucatan over to Quintana Roo. Quintana Roo is the state where Cancun is found, in Playa del Carmen. Then you have Campeche, and kind of works your way all the way down that peninsula. If you get your map of Michigan, I believe, in one direction, and then your map of Mexico is kind of like this. So Cancun's your tip over here. So this whole region of Mexico all speaks Mayan, which is fascinating that you have all these traditional languages still spoken. So tican chic literally means dry fish. It's originally a fish dish, traditionally snapper. It's cooked inside the banana leaves with achiote and everything. So it's evolved though. Now in these hotels, you can find it octopus tican chic, the shrimp one that you're trying that we have in the restaurant. And you do all kinds of different. Sometimes you'll even see like them use that same marination on chicken as well. So we have.
It's delicious. You know what's funny is I wasn't expecting. You're never sure because I hadn't tried it before. That's why I like to try it live. I'm not normally a fan of corn tortillas, so I wasn't going to tell you that. I was just going to try. These are delicious.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank you.
I mean, I'm obviously not quite at the Taco Bell level. That's college. Although I could eat it sometimes, I'm sure. I'm not dissing it. But I definitely have tried different tacos. And I just find that corn they weren't my favorite flavor, but this is delicious.
Yeah. So we work with a tortilleria out of Atlanta that's actually fresh. It's cooked corn that they puree down to make the tortilla. So that's where you get that kind of intense smell when you walk into our restaurant, kind of like Annie's pretzels, where the smell just wafts at you. We do get a lot of people that come in and they say, I'm not a corn tortilla fan. Can I get flour? And I try and push them to at least get one, because when you taste ours, that's what a tortilla tastes like in Mexico. Not there's a famous chef in Mexico that described seca or any of those instant corn flour tortilla bases as instant mashed potatoes. So you can add bacon, cheddar cheese. It's still instant mashed potatoes, and it's the same way with the tortilla. But if it's made from real corn, like the ones that you find at 7-Eleven in the cooler in Mexico, then you just get that flavor difference to it all. So
I had some people. It's phenomenal, by the way. I had some people ask me about the menu. So I've got two questions there. First, you mentioned it a little earlier. So if you've been to the website, you know that the menu is like a map, and if you don't know what you're looking for, you're not sure. That's where the menu is. You just need to read.
Yeah.
I had to do it too, so I was going to ask him the same question. What do you think? What do you think people miss out on that are so used to the Americanized or the Tex-Mex version of tacos and Mexican food? What are some of the flavors or some of the things that are normally part of that cuisine that we're missing out if we don't go to an authentic place like your place?
So I think a lot of it, if you're talking to a restaurant designer, they'd probably tell you my menu was not the way you should design a menu, because it is a little difficult to read. But I wanted it to basically give you a little bit of an educational experience. And I know a lot of people aren't looking for that when they're going out to eat, but at the same time, a lot of people are. So in Mexico, there's 32 states plus Mexico City. And so a lot of people don't know the full name of Mexico is Estados Unidos Mexicanos. The United States of Mexico is the full name. So each state brings its own different culture variation. There's actually 69 recognized native languages in Mexico, and then Spanish being the 70th language. So when you look at legal paperwork in Mexico, the government requires by law that if anybody requests a contract for their mortgage for their house in their native language, like Mayan, it has to be translated into that language. So,
Very cool.
So they've definitely kept a lot of those things alive. So you see that as you look through the different states, that there's this influence from one state to the other. And then you have states like Jalisco, where Guadalajara is, and you do have some native culture to certain areas. But Guadalajara, for example, was an area that didn't really exist before the Spanish colonized it. So you have very Spanish influences there, or Veracruz is the largest port in Mexico, and most of their product comes through Spain. So you see olives in their dishes, you see serrano ham in the dishes, things that are very Spanish, the wines that are from Spain, because it's all coming off of the port there, and then it's all just going right into the restaurants. So that's something I wanted to convey with the menu as we developed it, was how there's different regions for things. In the United States, for example, you can find a great steak in Florida, in Kansas, in Washington, D.C., in Washington State. In Mexico, honestly, there's certain states like in the Yucatan region where Cancun is, the beef is not good at all. So you don't really want a steak like on the grill. It has a weird flavor to it, kind of like an irony flavor. So that's where you braise it down. But they're known for chicken and turkey and pork in that region. Whereas if you get up in that northwestern part of Mexico, kind of south of Arizona, south of Texas, that's where you start really getting into like, now I understand what carne asada is. So when I first opened, we were actually classifying the restaurant as a guisados restaurant, where everything's slow braised and slow cooked, which is really what you see Mexico City South. But people were coming in always asking for carne asada. And finally one day I said, you know what? I'm tired of not having it. They keep asking for it. I'm just gonna But carne asada is really a dish from the north. So that's why people see it in so many restaurants. They see carne asada, they see carnitas, which is from Michoacan, because of the immigration into the United States. If you go back to our Michigan/Mexico map, the people from this region would have to go all the way down and then come all the way up to get into the United States. So most of your immigration's from that northern section. So that's where we see that influence in our cuisine in the United States, which makes it more Tex-Mex. But I think the biggest thing to Mexican food is just the freshness. There's only a couple ingredients that really go into making a quality product. And a lot of that has to do with who's cooking in Mexico. So your wealthy families have almost live-in maids. Usually most families the maid goes home to their family on Sunday, and the rest of the week they're at the house. So so the maid obviously is from a poorer class, and then the people that can't afford maids are from the poorer class. And so when you look at the pans that they're working with, they're the cheap ones from Walmart. So you don't caramelize an onion like you would in French cuisine. You burn it, you char it, you get that. That's really part of what goes into that flavor profile of what's become Mexican food. Our tortilla, we sear it in a way that's done kind of in the more small villages versus in the higher end restaurants, because they cook a lot on clay with open flames, so it's hard to control the heat of that flat top. So we actually do a char to it to kind of get that like char on the corn for the flavor profile. And so it's things like that are small, but they really make a huge difference. And then same thing with spices. In Tex-Mex cuisine, everybody has that taco seasoning that's like got 20 different spices in it. Well, in Mexico, you don't see 20 different spices. You see certain chilies, you see things that we look at as holiday spices, cloves, allspice, juniper. Those things actually go into a lot of the spice mixes, cinnamon. But you don't see, cumin is not excessively used. There's actually a video of Guy Fieri visiting his restaurant in Mexico, and the chef that he had, she was kind of making fun of him on the video, but it went because she said, I know you like to use cumin. And with a very like that's not Mexican at all kind of. And, so you really don't see a lot of cumin in the cuisine. It's really just about letting the ingredients speak.
So I have to ask, because somebody did ask, and I thought it was a funny yet very telling question. Is chimichanga a real thing? Like, is that really Mexican, or is that made up by Taco Bell and the powers that be?
So chimichangas are actually originating in Texas. So it has nothing to do with Mexican cuisine. And actually, the burrito is not Mexican either. So you will not find a burrito in Mexico. Maybe on the border states you might, but really, as you get in, if you go down to Mexico City, if you go to Guadalajara, if you go to Monterrey, if you go to Cancun, Cancun, there's one burrito place, but it's actually owned by Americans. But it's funny. Right next to my house, there's what's called basically a cafeteria, and it's not like a school cafeteria, but it's just a little shop. And this two older women were in there, and the whole story of those concepts is they really don't have a menu. It's kind of what they're making. And once they got to know me and my neighbor, he's from California, and also worked at the hotel, he asked one day for a breakfast burrito, and so he gets this breakfast burrito that was probably about this thick. So it looked more like a flauta. And he was like, you know what? I guess I can't ask for a burrito anymore.
Because I think people just don't know. You know that gordito that they have at certain restaurants, and that's also made up. All right, so I would be remiss if I didn't mention this again. Tell me, I have a cerveza local. It's a lager. And tell me, where do you get this? How do you do this? It's delicious, by the way. I have had more than one sip, which is usually the tell-all for me, and any new kind of beer.
So the beer Cerveza Local. It's actually our private label. We're working with Sideboard Brewing is actually the ones making it for us. So you've got
I love Dana and those guys.
You got the skyline, or if I can navigate my hand, skyline of Orlando. So you got downtown, Lake Eola.
Very cool.
And the best part, the I-4 eyesore right there. This is our private label for Mex Taco and for Tenon Taco. Right here, it actually says Hecho in Orlando, made in Orlando. So
nice.
It's been an awesome little collaboration.
It's delicious, actually.
Thank you.
I love the beer there. All right, so how do people find you? How do people order food? How do they get a hold of you? Tell them the best way.
Definitely. So we're doing the 25% seating, but only outside on our patio at this point because the location is pretty small. You can either call us at 407-730-5241 if you want to order food, or else come on in and order. We're definitely doing a lot of things to maintain that safety factor. We've got the sanitizers in the restaurant. We've got right now we're just doing disposable silverware and plates. Eventually, I'd love to get back to my Mexican plateware that we brought in. In the meantime, just kind of keeping things safe. We're also on Uber, Postmates, and DoorDash.
Guys, it's delicious. I mean it. Again, you can't fake it. So if I didn't like it, I wouldn't keep eating it in the middle of you talking, which is pretty rude usually. But I figure you would rather have me eat the food than not eat the food. Really delicious. So this, if they want to call today, this is a Gringa.
Yes, and so we only have a limited supply of those. And then if you haven't had the tacos al pastor, we do it on a vertical rotisserie, like a shawarma. And we do that every Saturday from 12 to 3. We usually sell out because it's actually our most popular taco. So look for in the near future us adding more days that we're going to have that available. But right now, it's just on Saturdays.
Fantastic. Ryan Manning, thank you with MX Taco. Fantastic. You made my lunch. You made my day. This is so good. You guys check him out. MX Taco. It's on Facebook. I tagged it. There's the restaurant website. Give them a shout. The food's amazing. Thank you so much, Ryan. Appreciate it. All right, guys. We'll be back. I don't know when, but I'll see you soon. And it really is delicious.
Thank you.
All right.